Your EQ says, distinguish biomolecules, summarizing structure. Distinguish between the biomolecules by summarizing their structure. This is your EQ. Do you have something to write with? Shh.
Oh, what are we writing? Is that a new one? Because look.
It's pretty much the same thing. I've just changed it a little. You only have to write this if you're starting a fresh page of notes because you lost your other ones. If you have your notes from Friday, you don't have to worry about it. Your topic or objective is to name. Oh, a lanyard? No, I don't have one. Name and explain the functions of the 4 macromolecules. So if I were writing my objective, I'd just write, name and explain the functions of 4 macromolecules. The ones we're going to specifically look at as a class are carbs, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids. By the end of this unit, which will be probably middle of next week, you'll be able to look at a diagram, tell me what type of biomolecule it is, and tell me that biomolecule's function. That's our goal. Today is the 19th. No, sir. Shh. So your first question on your C notes was, what is a biomolecule? If you have your notes, you don't have to do this if you've lost them. My first question would be, what's a biomolecule? I would say it's organic and it has carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. CH and O. Those are the important elements. There's 2 more elements that could be in a biomolecule. It's nitrogen and phosphorus. But you'll see later that one of the ways we can tell which biomolecule it is by looking at which elements are present. It's actually very simple. So we also said that organic molecules are just molecules that contain carbon. You don't have to write that. It's kind of redundant from the last page. We said that monomers let's not play with hair, ladies. We're waiting. A monomer, you need to know, is small and it can form a chain. So a monomer would be like the one pearl, okay? A polymer is when those pearls line up. It's a chain of many monomers. So the diagram I could draw here are lots of dots connected by a chain. So a monomer is usually one. A polymer, the prefix poly means many. So that's a lot of those dots lined up to form a chain. So it's the pearl versus the whole pearl necklace. Hey guys, are we in the seating arrangement I gave y'all? No. We're not. Some of us are, some of us aren't. So I'm going to count to 10. And when I'm done counting to 10, I want you where you're supposed to sit. So take a moment, yes, you stay there, Jose. Take a moment, get your stuff together. When I'm done counting to 10, you need to be where you're supposed to be.
I don't have about 10, I'm sorry.
What does that even say?
She wrote that. It says the one with the blue pen.
Yeah, I'm sure she wrote that.
I'll make it.
I will. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, one. Now, let's move forward. As I said, this is a review. We've already gone through these, but for those of you who lost your notes, I'm going to fly through it. Polymers are formed together by dehydration synthesis. What do we take out if we dehydrate something? We take out water. So polymers are formed by dehydration. We remove water. And water is just 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. So the next question would be, well, how do I break up polymers, right? What do we have to add? If we want to break polymers up, so next question, how are polymers broken? It's the reverse. We're going to add water. So you take away water, they form a chain. You add water, they break apart. Easy breezy, right? Hydrolysis is the adding of water. Dehydration synthesis is the removal of water. That's about where we left off on that Friday. So I think what we're moving to now is new stuff. So I'm going to do it just like I always do new notes. I'm going to go pretty slowly. I'm going to ask you several times if you're caught up and ready to move on, all right? So, the first biomolecule we're going to look at, you can do a heading on the left-hand side of your Cornell notes and write carbohydrates. And you're going to write the C, the H, and the O. What do you think CHO means? Why is that there? What do you think that's for?
Chemistry.
Chemistry. What about chemistry? What do you study on the periodic table? Elements.
Elements in his name.
Elements. So last year in 8th grade, you should have learned how to tell the difference between an element and a compound, right? Yeah. You look at the capital letters, right? How many capital letters do we have? 3. So how many elements do we have? 3. These are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. These 3 elements are in carbohydrates, all right? So, question is, what are carbohydrates? Carbohydrates include sugars, starches, and cellulose. So you don't forget, if you want to write out, that they have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. I say, when I talk about a carb, I say CHO. Carbs are CHO. Carbs are sugars, starches, and cellulose. And they have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. If at any time during notes today you need another sheet of Cornell note paper, you don't have to ask. You can come up to the front and get it. Just don't let your movement be a distraction. Raise your hand if you're still writing here. Okay. You need what? Congratulations. Okay. All right, if you're not done, you can get it from your neighbor. Let's talk a little bit more about carbs. Carbs. When you think about carbs, these are your things like your bread and your cookies and your pasta, all of that yummy, gooey goodness, right? So carbs have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in a 1-to-1 ratio. You don't have to write that. The subunit of carbs, whoops, wrong writing utensil. The subunit of carbs are what called monosaccharides. These are things like glucose or fructose. Carbs are in the shape of a ring. They're connected with covalent bonds. So, one way you can remember this is think about when you're sweet on somebody, right? You buy them gifts, right? Valentine's Day, you probably buy them candy, right? If you're really sweet on them, you may eventually buy them a ring. Okay? So carbs are sweet, and they come in the shape of a ring. Pretty easy to remember, right? So, the big ideas here. I would draw a ring. I would write that they're sweet. Now, not always sweet. Is bread always sweet?
Oh, no.
No. Are crackers always sweet? No. It's just usually. It does. They're usually sweet. Just because it's not sweet doesn't mean it's a carb or it's not a carb. So when they're by themselves, we call them a monosaccharide. What do you think we call them when they're put together? If we talked about monomers and polymers, what do you think we call it when a lot of carbs are in a chain together? How about a polymer? Polysaccharide, maybe? If it's a monosaccharide and it's one, and we put them all together, couldn't it be a polysaccharide?
Yeah.
Yes. Raise your hand if you're still writing here. Be sure you're following along. This is actually one of the easiest units you're going to have this year. Don't fall asleep on me, Cameron. All right. Daniel, be sure you're following along, babe. All right, so here's an example of a monosaccharide. I don't want you to draw this much detail in your notes, but I would like you to draw the five-sided shape and label this. I don't know what happened. Okay. No. Okay. No. I want you to label this a monosaccharide. I'm sorry, I messed up. Okay. No, you don't have to label it. Like, you don't have to write the elements. You just need to draw the shape, and you need to write that it's a monosaccharide. So a five-sided ring. So what is it a true circle? No, that's not a circle. What do we call a shape with five sides?
Hexagon.
Ah, that's six. Pentagon. Pentagon. So it's really a pentagon, but if you start from one point and you come all the way back to that point, you can say that it travels like in a circle, right? That's what I mean when I say it's shape of a circle. It's not really. It's got five sides. That's not a circle. You don't have to draw the blue arrow. That's me talking at you. So draw that pentagon and say that it's a monosaccharide. It is kind of like a house, right? Now, if I put two carbs together, no, you don't have to write this. I've got one here, I've got two here. What is the abbreviation that means two? Di. So I would say this is a disaccharide, right? What if I have a whole lot of them? Here I've got four. What do I say this is? Poly. So poly's when there's a lot of them, right? There's more than two usually. So three or more you can say is a polysaccharide. But look, these are all still carbs. How many sides does this carb have? 6. So what is its shape? That's a hexagon. But it still starts in one point, comes back to that point, so it's kind of like, we say as scientists, we say that's kind of like a circle, right? Okay. Does everybody understand what I mean there? Okay. So, carbohydrates. We know they have the element carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. We know they're in the shape of a ring, because when you're sweet on somebody, you give them a ring. But what do? They
break up with you.
That would be bad, right? Carbohydrates. In your notes, you need to write, wrong writing utensil. You need to write function. Carbohydrates give you energy. They provide structural support. They help make the cell wall. And they mark the cell membrane. If you run track, you may have heard people say they were carb loading, or sometimes they say they're pasta loading the night before an event.
They give energy, they give
all that stuff. People load up with carbs before an athletic event because they are a quick energy boost. They are an easily accessible form of energy. Some people bulk up with protein before an event. Protein can also serve some of that, or fats can also serve some of that, but they're slower to release. So if you're wanting a quick pick-me-up, you guys all know the Snickers commercials, right?
You're not you.
You're not you and you're hungry, and they hand them a Snickers and they go back to being okay. What do you think Snickers are?
Yeah.
What type of biomolecule?
Carbon.
They're carb. They're not carbon. They're a carb, right?
They sweet.
So they're a quick pick-me-up.
No wonder it's a carb, and it's how many carbs.
Yes, how many carbs are in it? Let me tell you about what I've seen on past EOCs. Henry, I keep calling you Henry. Cameron brought up a good point. He said, so it's like when you turn it over and you look at that nutritional value information where it says carb. That's exactly what I'm talking about. On the candy bar, on the muffin, on the whatever you're eating, it'll tell you how many calories there are. We ready? It'll tell you how much protein, how many carbs, how many sugars, etc., etc., etc. I have seen a question on the EOC from last year. Your other ear. And that's what it was. It was a nutritional thing, like off the back of a candy bar or whatever. And it asks you, that gives you like 4 of them, and it asks you to pick a low-calorie, high-energy snack. So you had to find the nutritional information that had the lowest calories and the most carbs. Because carbs are going to be your quick energy. So you have to know this information well enough to interpret nutritional data. So, carbs give you energy. Lipids. So new heading on your Cornell notes. What are lipids? Lipids also have the same elements. They have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So if they have the same elements, how do you think we tell them apart from one another?
I need the atomic number.
Well, the atomic number is how you tell elements apart, but how would we tell a molecule apart from another molecule if they have the same elements? That's a good question, huh? Anybody want to guess?
Give us a hint.
There's a hint on the board.
By as many things they got, like HCO.
Okay, so by how many of those elements they have, right? But also, is that in a ring?
No.
No. It's a chain. You can tell that's a lipid just by looking at its structure. Okay? So carbs and lipids have the same type of elements, but their structure's different. So on your Cornell notes, you should have the question, what are lipids? You should have CHO, and you should have that they're fats and phospholipids. I don't want you to draw out this whole crazy chain, but I want you to draw a straight line with two tails. That is the basic structure of a lipid. A straight line with two tails. I haven't had a chance. So lipids, CHNO, they're fats and phospholipids. They're a long chain with two little tails. Andrew, how are your notes coming? So if I look at them, I'm going to be happy? Okay. Okay. So let's look at what makes up a lipid. The building blocks of a liquid, the subunits, glycerol and fatty acids, plus a phosphate group. That's what makes a lipid. That doesn't make much sense to you right now. It's okay. It will eventually. Just go ahead and get it down. A glycerol, a fatty acid, and a phosphate group. How your notes coming? You following along? Say it again, baby. Yes. Glycerol, fatty acid, and a phosphate group. They will not dissolve in water. Have you ever done the experiment where you pour oil and water in a cup and you shake it up? Have you guys ever seen that done?
Yes.
So what happens? It says that they separate, right? They will not mix together, no matter how hard you try. That's a lipid. A lipid is like an oil. And it won't ever get very big. It doesn't form large polymers. You'll at most have 2 or 3 together. So you're not going to do like you do in carbs where you have 10, 9, whatever monomers put together. You're never going to have more than 3. Yes. We get out of here at, that's a good question. I think 2:02, right? Yeah, 2:02. So we got 22 minutes. All right, guys. I'll make you a deal. You hang in for one more slide. You give me your good work, and we'll take a break, okay? So one more. That didn't really count. Here's an example of a phospholipid. Now let's look at lipid function. So you're still under lipids. You're going to write function. They store energy. They insulate. They are part of the cell membrane. When we talk about cells, we'll talk about something called the phospholipid bilayer. You don't have to worry too much about it yet, but cells is actually our next unit. So pretty soon we'll be talking about it. They help with hormones, so puberty couldn't have happened without lipids. And they're hydrophobic, which means they don't like water. So their function, they store energy. Which energy source do you think is easier to access by the human body? A carb or a lipid? Which one's easier to access? Carb, absolutely. They're more simple. Energy storage, insulation. You could say I'm very well insulated. They help to form the cell membrane, They help make hormones, and they don't like water. All right, you've got 30 seconds. I want you to stand up and find your soulmate. You're going to walk around the room until you find someone with shoes similar to yours. You've got 30 seconds. On your mark, get set, go. 29, 28, get up. 27, 26, get up. 25, 24, get up. 23, 22. Find the closest match. So they don't have to be identical. 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Find a partner. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Eyes and ears on me. In your partner group, I want one of you to be ketchup and one of you to be mustard. Pick now. Commit. Mustard. I want you to tell ketchup what is a carb. Ketchup. I want you to tell mustard what is a lipid. So discuss. When you're done, go back to your seat.
A carb is a chicken.
I don't think a carb is a chicken. I don't think that works.
You ketchup. I'm ketchup. You is.
What is a carb?
You got to tell her what is a carb.
Oh.
You can't just say what is a carb. You got to tell her what it is. You got 10 more seconds.
Carb is a.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, avid parent night, 4, 3, 2, back in your seats when I say 1. All right, get ready to move on. So now we're going to talk about proteins. Look at the very top. What has changed? The elements. So we count number of capital letters. How many capital letters do we have here? So how many different elements is that? Very good, Jose. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. So proteins. Next heading on the left-hand column of your Cornell notes, what are proteins? They are organic molecules, provide structure, and facilitate chemical reactions. So far, we've had cho, now we have chon. Cho-cho-chon. The first cho was in a ring. The second cho was in a strand with 2 tails. Chon is going to be a little different. Proteins are organic molecules. They provide structure and facilitate chemical reactions. Structure. What does somebody ask a question? What was it? What was it? Did you get it? They provide structure. Oh, my carbs in the candy. Those carbs sure do taste good. If you're honest, so do those proteins. It's not much better than a good hot steak. Ooh, I love steak. Some chicken, some fried chicken, some. All right. If you're not done writing, you can get it from your neighbor. Provide structure, function. Provide structure. Facilitate chemical reactions. Be sure you get down that this one is CHON. You're going to need to know that. Proteins are made of smaller units called amino acids. They are connected via peptide bonds. These are large. You don't have to write that they're globular or structural. Made of amino acids. They connect with peptide bonds, and they're very large. So this is where I was talking about this could be an amino acid, this could be an amino acid, so on and so forth. And then my protein would be them all on a chain. And these would be peptide bonds. Later on this year, we're actually going to learn about how proteins are made by the DNA in your cell. It's actually pretty cool.
When are we going to open up, though?
Not until after the EOC. We do that at the very end of the year. Daniel, wake up, babe. Head up. Okay, raise your hand if you're still writing. A few more seconds. What's that, Austin? So, this is the structure of a single amino acid. Let me see, do I have a picture of... I don't. All right, if I were going to draw a protein, this isn't up here on the slideshow, so... If I were going to draw a protein, it's usually a chain. It's usually like this. And the way this is different from a lipid's going to be a straight line. A protein is usually a jagged or a bent line with a tail or two. I would draw that shape at least, Austin. The blue line. You're actually going to get a diagram of these probably tomorrow, so you'll get a little bit better picture than that, but I want you to kind of have it in your notes. So this would be a lipid. This would be a protein. You going to what? Mm-hmm. Okay. Hang in, guys. We've only got about 12 more minutes. Y'all can do it. So, let's review. What were the elements in a carb?
Sugar, starch, and... Oh, no.
CHO. What about a lipid?
CHO.
What about a protein?
6HON.
All right. Let's look at the function of proteins. We need to know what they do. So in your notes, we're still under protein. We're going to write function. They function as enzymes. We're still under proteins. Enzyme. ENZYME. They can give structural components to a cell. They can work in muscles and cytoskeleton, and they can help with cell signaling. Proteins are important. Proteins are kind of what make you you. They're what tell your body what to make in order to make your hair, or your skin, or your stomach, or your toenails. Or Austin's lip. Couldn't help it, Austin. A few more seconds. There's chatter, so I'm going to assume you're done. Quit calling Jose, Jason. I know there's not a bird in here.
You wait, I know 5'4". How tall do you think Austin is? Shut up.
How old?
How tall do you think Austin is? I'm 5'3". I mean 5.
He's 5'4".
See?
I'm only 5'9", 6'9", 7".
All right, guys, I'm going to move on. Shh, I'm going to wait. I know y'all have been a whole week with the sub, and I know it's hard to come back and focus, but we've got to do it. So we're on our last biomolecule, nucleic acids. What elements do you think are present in a nucleic acid? How many are there? 5. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. So this is CHOMP. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. So if I were looking at the 4 biomolecules in order, and I wanted to memorize what elements are in each, I could simply memorize CHO, CHO, CHON, CHOMP. CHO, CHO, CHON, CHOMP. We'll be using that throughout this unit to help us remember what's in each of these molecules. So your question is, what are nucleic acids? This is your DNA and your RNA. You can draw this twisted ladder.
We can do this.
It's got the rungs down the middle.
We can do this. China, Houston, Oregon. They're not gonna.
Yeah, that's a little, yes.
Oh.
That's a little more difficult. Trust me, by the time we're done, Cho Cho Chon Chomp will be running through your head in your sleep. Yes.
So can you all come to biology?
You guys are going to get to do it after Christmas. Right now, it's just for the ECHS kids are taking their EOC in December. Okay. So in your notes, you should have what are nucleic acids, their DNA or RNA, and you should have DNA drawn. Yes, ma'am.
That's it. That's all we do.
Guys, quit blurting. You know it's my pet peeve.
Isn't it RNA also?
DNA and RNA, yeah.
Miss, how are we supposed to draw it?
You don't have to draw it. If you want to, you can. So let's look at the structure of a nucleic acid. These are the biggest of the biomolecules. So structure, the subunits are nucleotides. It has a sugar, which if you remember, a sugar is a carb. There is a carb inside of a nucleic acid. It has nitrogen and it has a phosphate. Guys, there's 2 ways you can remember which one of the biomolecules is the nucleic acid. It's the only one you're going to see phosphorus in, and it's also the biggest. It's the biggest of the 4. So you look at its structure, you find phosphorus, there should be a sugar somewhere in it, and you see that it's really big, it has to be a nucleic acid, if we're looking at biomolecules. A 5-carbon sugar just means that it's a pentagon. It's got 5 sides. Girls. Oh, we're getting very close to being done. Yeah, I don't know if it's exactly the last, but raise your hand if you're still writing here. For this structure, I know this picture here is kind of hard to draw. So what you can put in your notes, you can put a circle, and you can do that pentagon, and then you can do a chain. Yes, I'm going to highlight it so you can see it better. That's the gist of a nucleic acid. It's not perfect. All right, I'm about to move on. So let's talk about what nucleic acids do. Their function. So we're under nucleic acids. The function, they store and retrieve information, they encode genes, and they express genes. They store and retrieve information, they encode genes, and they express genes. That's the function of a nucleic acid. When you come to class tomorrow, we'll be making a foldable over biomolecules. We're not done yet. Do not pack up and put away your notes. At your tables, in your supply buckets, you should have markers and highlighters. I want you to take the last few minutes of class, and here are your directions. You're going to swap notes with someone at your table. The person you swap with, yes, we have time for that. We've got 10 minutes. Well, no, we've only got 3 minutes. We'll pick up with this tomorrow. Go ahead and put your C notes into your binder. Keep them safe. Do not lose them before class tomorrow. Look at the board. This is the way we'll be remembering this for the whole unit. Clipping carbs, lipids, proteins, nucleic acids. If I remember them in that order, it's always cho, chon, chomp. I'll see you guys tomorrow.